This particular story was sent to me by one of my friends on, I guess you could say, on Facebook, Instagram, and subscriber on YouTube. Shout out to God of Harmon for sending me this. At first, I wasn't going to talk about it until I was able to read through the tweets and the article that I will read as it pertains to this topic right here. So before I really get into it, as you all know, a couple days ago, the deal between Disney and Fox, or as I like to call it, the mouse and the fox, went down, and it is a done deal in which Disney has purchased a huge chunk of Fox's stake in the entertainment properties. I believe it was a 50 billion with a B dollar deal. And they got a lot of, I guess you could say, the superhero comic book fans all excited and riled up because for years people have wanted the remaining Marvel properties to go back to Marvel, because if y'all don't know, years ago Marvel was in jeopardy. Like, they were about to file bankruptcy, and that's why many companies like Sony and Fox had claims to various Marvel properties so they could save their company, until 2012, when Disney had bought a good chunk of their company as well, and they released Avengers. And then of course that movie took off and broke a lot of records, and a lot of other movies came out behind it. Well, I take that back. When Iron Man came out, probably back in '08, and then of course Captain America, and then Avengers. But after Avengers, that's when it really took off. And now they have acquired the Fox properties back. So that means now you're going to get Fantastic Four, X-Men, and various other things. So a lot of people are really excited about that. But a person that's probably not that excited right now is Alexandra Shipp. As you can see, she is the young woman on the left. If y'all don't know, she's an actress. She played in that god-awful trash Aaliyah movie that Wendell Williams put out there on Lifetime a couple years ago, that I did not watch, and I'm glad that I didn't watch it, because it was just completely in utter disrespect to Aaliyah, her legacy and her family and whatnot. But she ended up gaining even more notoriety when she was cast to play Storm in the latest X-Men movie, which was X-Men Apocalypse, that came out last year. Now, when it comes to this character of Storm and how Storm was created, Storm was seen as the first black female superhero. Of course, Black Panther was the first black superhero, male or female, period, no matter what comic it came from, whether it was Marvel or DC. So we had black representation in the comics overall, but then when Storm was created, then black women had a representation of a black female superhero, and I guess that was a way to draw in black female readers, which it did, and it worked. Especially because Storm is a very powerful mutant, which you wouldn't know that looking at the movies, because they always watered down her character, which is another reason why we are glad that the mouse acquired the fox, because now we might actually see Storm in her true fruition. And then, side note, and I've said this before, because people are always saying, when will Storm appear in the Black Panther movies? I kept saying it won't happen unless they acquire those properties. I hope y'all remember me saying that. Now that they have the properties, Storm might actually appear in one of the Black Panther sequels, because I believe every solo movie with Marvel has a trilogy. So Black Panther is about to have its first, coming out in February, which means more will be coming down. And now that this deal is pretty much done, Storm will most likely make an appearance, and they might throw in that storyline that a lot of black people loved, of course to the dismay of most of the white comic book readers back then, which is why they annulled their marriage. It's a very interesting but sad thing at the same time. But dealing with Caucus Stain, you already know how that goes. But anyway, I don't want to go too much into that. But anyway, she was cast as Storm. Now, a lot of people had some issue with that because they felt she was too light-skinned to play the part. And to be honest, a lot of people didn't know that she was quote-unquote biracial or mixed. They thought she was just a light-skinned girl who maybe had a light-skinned parent and maybe a dark-skinned parent, and she just came out light-skinned. Her story is almost similar to that of Halle Berry, because Halle Berry was cast to play Storm back in the original X-Men films back in 2000, and she was known to play Storm all the way up into Days of Future Past, which is the one that came out before Apocalypse. Now, everyone knew Halle Berry was biracial. Everyone knew it. But people looked past that. The reason why people didn't like Halle Berry as Storm is because she didn't give the best performance of the Storm character. She didn't have the accent, or the accent kept going in and out. It's like she kept having the African accent, then she had the American accent, and then all of a sudden she completely dropped the African accent and just stayed with the American one throughout the rest of the movie. And it was like, oh, okay, well, we'll stick with it. And I think they threw Halle Berry in there because she was the popular actor. Originally, they wanted to have Angela Bassett play her, which would have been a good choice. But I'm glad Angela passed on it because she said she didn't like how Storm was written. She just felt that Storm was poorly written, as we can see right now. Storm was poorly written in pretty much every X-Men film that she's been in. Fast forward to Apocalypse. I will give Alexandra Shipp this. She did get the accent good. Like, she got it down. Like, her accent, I'm not going to take that away from her. She convinced me with her accent. She did a lot better with the accent than Halle Berry ever could, in my opinion. But as we see now, they are going to most likely recast her as Storm. And a lot of black people, a lot of black fans of the character will prefer a dark-skinned actress to, or even better yet, an African actress, if they could find one, to portray Storm. And when I say African, I'm talking about a deep, dark, melanated woman, because you got to be careful with that nowadays, because you can say African and they'll pull a light-skinned one right out on your ass. Look at who won Miss Universe. But she went off on her Twitter followers. She went in. And I'm going to read you this article, and then I'm going to read you her tweets as well. And I want you to listen to how, even though you can understand her being upset, because I'm very sure she worked hard for this role and she really wants to portray this role, she made some very contradictory type statements that kind of work more against her instead of working more for her in her favor. And some people had to check her on that. But she was so enraged with how people reacted that she got blind to what was being said. Oh, and before I go even further, I remember when they did the casting for Black Panther and people saw Chadwick Boseman, they was like, okay, he played Jackie Robinson, he played James Brown, but I wonder, can he play Black Panther? Now, Black Panther is the only character that he's portrayed so far that is a fictional character. He is just known for comics, but he does have an accent. And when he portrayed Black Panther in Civil War, from the very first word that he said, I was sold. I said, Chadwick Boseman can walk around on the streets today with that accent, and you would swear he's from West Africa. His accent is that convincing. And everyone praised him for it. And here we are today. No one has any problems with it. And see, a lot of people will feel the same way if Chadwick Boseman, or not Chadwick Boseman, if Black Panther was portrayed by a light-skinned, quote-unquote, biracial person. They would feel the exact same way. But see, that's the difference between Disney with Marvel and Fox with Marvel. See, y'all see where I'm going with this. That's why I say, if the mouse had acquired the fox back then, we probably wouldn't even be having this discussion. But let me go ahead and read this article. It says, actress Alexandra Shipp had a rough day yesterday. A reply to a fan who tweeted to her about a possible movie pairing of her X-Men character Storm with fellow Marvel comic character Thor led to a discussion on colorism in Hollywood, in which Shipp said that 90% of the racism she experiences is from black people. Okay, that's where she lost us already. And I think that's what set people off, because what we notice is that when it comes to a lot of quote unquote biracial people, is that many of them tend to say that whatever discrimination they face often always comes from black people. When we've seen a lot of the racism that happens in this establishment when it comes from the caucus stain, it makes you wonder, how in the hell are black people doing all of this so-called discrimination? Again, it's like that scapegoat syndrome. Like, we are always the scapegoat for everything bad. Someone says, I'm going to go ahead and insert my face palm here because where are your people when you need them? And when she says yours, she's talking about Alexandra. After news broke Thursday that Disney was acquiring 21st Century Fox, an excited fan tweeted to Shipp and said, now that Disney bought Fox, I'm going to need that Storm and Thorn team up. How do you feel about that, sister? It says Shipp replied that she would love for that to happen. Some fans who are extremely faithful to comic book lore are at odds with the idea of Shipp portraying Storm because in the comics, Storm is a dark-skinned black woman and Shipp, who has a white mother and black father, is light-skinned. It's weird because didn't another mixed-race light-skinned actress play Storm as well? Did people get this upset about Halle Berry playing the character? I guess social media wasn't such a big thing when Berry did her return in 2014, but I digress. One fan snapped on Shipp and replied to her with a particularly snarky tweet that said, nope, Disney is recasting the whole team. We getting a dark-skinned, non-racially ambiguous Storm like we deserve. Yikes. Shipp, understandably upset, quoted the tweet and said, this right here, pure hate. It's disgusting. My whole life I've had to defend my skin tone like it's controllable, like I've ever been treated white. Sorry, your racism doesn't work on me. I'm a strong black woman and no one will ever be able to take that from me, not even a troll. And they said, racism? Another person tried to explain to Shipp that colorism and racism are not the same thing. Author Nina Perez wrote, sister, dark-skinned people wanting representation isn't racism. Taking it to your mentions may be a bridge too far, but dismissing colorism and its negative effects isn't cool either. It seemed like Shipp understood what was being said, because she responded to Perez and said, I don't dismiss colorism in any way, shape, or form, but I'm not wearing blackface. I am black. Everyone should be represented, but I'm playing a cartoon, not a historical figure, period. Thank you for showing up with coherent criticism. I hear your constructive criticism. But did she really get it? Because when a fellow light-skinned mixed actor responded that there wasn't a lot of mixed-race people around when these characters were created, she seemed to agree with him and wanted to go back to fighting the good fight for light-skinned people. So, excuse me, it seems to me that she's doing the fence straddling thing. That's why you find now a lot of people or black people who have two black parents who are like clearly black don't really like to extend that hand out to people who are quote unquote biracial, because they pull a lot of things like this. Basically, if many of them aren't on that Colin Kaepernick tip at this point, then they who really know what side they are on, then they really don't accept them. So what? We're not allowed to get roles because we're mixed? Because when these characters were created, there wasn't a lot of mixed race people, so it was basically just black or white. Hashtag too white for the blacks, too black for the whites. Tanner J. Perry wrote in a new deleted tweet. Shipp quoted Perry's tweet and responded, well said, my dear friend. So is it Uchiwali or is it one Mike? Does Shipp really understand the problem with colorism in Hollywood, or does she feel victimized and discriminated against as a light-skinned black woman? Our answer lies in two of her last tweets on the subject. You want to know what I found interesting? That 90% of the racism I've experienced in my lifetime has been at the hands of fellow black people. It's crazy. Why do this? Why tell a woman she's not enough because you think so? She said in one tweet. Again, she equates a discussion on colorism with racism against her by her own people. And then she said, you guys act like I don't want every skin tone represented on TV. Who would ever want that? This conversation about Storm is so stupid. I'm out. Y'all don't know me and probably never will. If I lose my job to another actress, I hope it's for her talent and grace, not her skin, she said in another tweet. Poor Alexandra, she just doesn't get it. How are you a strong black woman who doesn't understand how colorism impacts dark-skinned actors? How do you a strong black woman. Equate criticism of colorism with racism from your own people. How are you a strong black woman so thin-skinned that when someone brings up the very real fact that you likely benefit from light skin privilege, it results in a total meltdown on Twitter? From one high yellow sister to another, buck up. As light-skinned women, we are afforded a certain amount of privilege that our darker-skinned sisters don't get. Admitting that is the first step to building and understanding it. Being dismissive of people who bring up the issue isn't helpful. It's a form of erasure that is even more egregious than the so-called racism you claim to experience from other black people. You aren't helping anything or anyone with that attitude. Your approach to this was wrong in so many ways, not the least of which was accusing of other black people of being racist against you. In the future, check your privilege. It just might help you learn something. In the excuse me. In the end, we sorry about that. In the end, we're going to see how all of this plays out. Like I said, when she said 90% of the racism that she faces comes from other black people, like I said, she really shot herself in the foot with that statement, considering it was mostly black people who knew who the hell she is or was. She can lose a core fan base with that statement. I mean, a lot of people who are quote unquote biracial say that. The only person I haven't heard say that is Colin Kaepernick. As we can tell, we already know that was to come from him. We know it will be a lie because because all of the racism that he's facing right now is coming from pretty much white people and these coons for the most part. But a lot of people have been wanting to see a Storm that looks like Storm on the big screen for such a long time. It's like, wow, we got her in the comics, we got her on the cartoon, but now can we have her on the big screen? Like, that's a huge, more massive scale now. Like I said, it started with Halle Berry back in the early 2000s. No one really cared because it was Halle Berry and that was at the height of her prime, but they just didn't like how she portrayed the character. And then I mean, Alexandra, she had mixed reviews and things of that nature. But now it's almost like her true nature just came out right here in these tweets. So it's almost like Twitter can expose you for who you really are. But that's really all I have to say. If you had to ask me how I would prefer to see Storm, I would prefer to see her how she was written. Or how she was drawn up, since she is a comic book character. Y'all let me know in the comments. Y'all gotta forgive me if it sounds like I'm a little bit all over the place right now. It's early in the morning. I'm actually about to head out because I'm about to cover somebody's early morning shift. But I just wanted to get this video recorded before heading on out. By the time you see it, it'll be in the afternoon. But y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, what do you think about what she said? Do you think she had any valid points? Do you think she went all over the place? And do you think that now that Disney finally has acquired Fox, well, the entertainment properties, do you think that now we're finally going to get the Storm that everybody really truly wants?